Good afternoon, respected Shri S. Gurumurthy ji, Shri L.K. Hanur ji, esteemed delegates and young minds of India. Namaste to you all. I welcome you all for the first technical session on economic perspective. This session is all about objectively assess the economic perspective of our nation. With a range of developments like SIT on black money, that is the first decision taken by this government on the day one in the cabinet. JAM Trinity, the most awaited GST, the income disclosure scheme, direct cash transfer, Make in India, Stand Up India, and range of reforms which are happening. And also the data shows that we are fastest growing economy. This particular topic, this session will deliberate on whether this economic growth is really a reality or is it a myth? Where does the business stand today? Where do we stand on agriculture development? And range of issues which are concerned to the common man of India. To deliberate on this, we have Shri S. Gurumurthy ji. I am honored and privileged to introduce you to Shri S. Gurumurthy ji. Shri S. Gurumurthy ji is a Swadeshi ideologue and a corporate advisor. Presently, distinguished research professor of legal anthropology at Shastra University and also visiting faculty at IIT Mumbai. He was a convener of Swadeshi Jagran Manch, a chartered accountant by profession. Shri Gurumurthy ji is highly rated for his investigative writing and persuasive skills. Gurumurthy ji was rated among most powerful persons in India in 1990 by Gentleman magazine, while India Today magazine in 2005 rated him as the 17th most powerful person in the country. His tireless campaign against corruption at high places, exposing the bribery in Bofors arms deal and the nexus between the corporates and the governor, the Business Baron magazine rated his knowledge of economics, finance, and accounts as outstanding. He was a convener of the task force formed by the BJP to assess the black money stashed in the foreign banks by Indian politicians and businessmen. I am honored to present to you Shri S. Gurumurthy ji. I welcome you, sir. May I now request Shri Gurumurthy ji to address the gathering.
Namaskarams to all. I was introduced as a visiting professor to the IIT Bombay. But I must tell you how it happened, what is the background to it, and that will probably set the background for the deliberations today also. Very specific questions were put about the GDP growth rate today, the black money issue, the reforms of this government. I would like to present a more helicopter view of what this country is, its economic impulses are, and where does the world stand, and how the world has been moving in the last 25, 30 years, and how our leaders, intellectuals, academics, media, policymakers have still not got an economic thought and functioning model which is not just suited to the genius of India, but it is not measuring up to the skill sets that is available in India to make not only India develop, but be an example to the world. Unless we understand coherently integrating different disciplines, we will never be able to have a view of what India can do, should do, and what it is doing, where it is falling short. You know, I was invited to the IIT Bombay for a lecture in the year 2010. And there was a huge gathering of the IIT scholars, research professors, academics, students. And ahead of me spoke Mr. Adi Godrej was one of the most respected business people, and I too respect him. There are not many respectable business people in India at that level. He's one of the ethically sound business head. So he presented a viewpoint which is largely prevalent and which guides the discourse in this country. And his presentation was simply this: that this country has never been known for its economic prowess. We were very great in understanding the spiritual and literary, social, cultural dimensions. We could relate God and man. We could go to the highest regions of human intellect. But we were very poor in making the economy, the life of the poor people, comfortable. And we began knowing what is prosperity only from 1990s, when globalization, liberalization came and began citing the kind of new cars that we were producing, and then computers and things like that. And he went on to say that till then we had only what is known as the Hindu rate of growth. You know, the entire IIT audience stood up and clapped him. And I found that the entire Indian civilization has been humiliated. And I was to speak next. And this is the state of mind of the entire country wherever I went. Whether it is IIT or IIM or industry associations or intellectual think tanks or even political parties, wherever I had gone, I see a huge stumbling block which made them feel that this country had somehow failed on the economic front. And it has begun limping and developing, quote unquote, only today. I have to take you to where I began in the IIT, which made them feel that I should begin teaching them. That's what I want to tell you now. You know, in the year 1853, you must all have heard of Karl Marx, who propounded and expounded the communist philosophy. He wrote an article in the New York Herald Tribune, which is known as the International Herald Tribune today, in which he wrote about India. He said it is a very peculiar country. It has some system of central governance. There is a method of taking care of waterways, roadways, transport of the people. There is some kind of central governance, though there is no central government. But its economic life is organized on the basis of villages. Each village is a self-contained economic unit, and it does not need anything from any other village. And importantly, everybody was doing some economic function or the other, and so there was very little exploitation. But he said these people are, for the last 2,000 years, changeless. They have been like this. And they appear to be semi-barbaric because they worship monkeys and cows. And the British are doing the right thing by destroying the socio-economic base of India, because for 2,000 years, if a society is changeless, it is a frozen society. It's a stagnant society. It has to be shaken out of its stagnation. And the British are doing it by destruction. He quoted Goethe to say that this destruction which the British is causing is painful, but it is pleasurable also. And so the destruction of the British is to be welcomed, because that is what will prepare India for revolution. The man never came to India. He never read any Indian literature. He never met any Indian masters. But he spoke about India, and he became one of the greatest influential thinkers who directed the course of India, the academics of India, the intellectual discourse of India, the media of India. Then came Max Weber. If anyone could be called as the person who philosophized, structured, and presented what is today known as the modern Western civilization, it is Max Weber. Sociology students will know this. Some economic students will also know what I am saying. Max Weber was the first person to link the influence of sociology, religion on economics. And he empirically studied the Protestant Christian societies and Catholic Christian societies and propounded a view that the Protestant Christian societies are progressing faster economically as compared to the Catholic societies, because the Protestant societies have imbibed the spirit of individualism, enterprise, entrepreneurship, which is very necessary to drive the modern capitalism, which is based on individual initiative and enterprise and entrepreneurship. This the Catholic societies are unable to do because they are under oppressed model of religion and the church, which prevented the individual from flowering into entrepreneurs. And so, there is a need for the society to be prepared for capitalism, market economics. And he was right. All the Protestant societies were moving faster. All the Catholic societies, whether it is Spain, whether it is Italy, or partly Germany, partly France, they were all lagging behind. America, England, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, they were all moving forward. And he was right, because he studied them for almost 2 decades. And he is the one who expounded the idea of methodological individualism, which is the core idea of all market economic theories today. Those who are very familiar with anthropology and sociology and the basis of what is known as market economics today, efficient market theory, efficient market hypothesis, these are all founded in the idea of methodological individualism, which is sourced in Max Weber's thinking. Max Weber was right for the West because the West was basically Christian in character. It had its civilizational roots, religious roots, social roots, and also huge amount of violence which shaped the society. Out of its own experiences, it grew. It had no model outside the kind of violence that it produced. I want you to look at a website, Professor R.J. Rummel's website, R-U-M-M-E-L, R.J. Rummel. He constructed this website over a period of 30 years. And that website is designated as democide. He estimated that 1.4 billion people at the maximum and 860 million people at the minimum have been killed in the last 2,500 years. Horrendous details of the killings that have taken place. The only place where there has been virtually no killing till the 13th century was India. But no one even questioned how. For 1800 years, there was no mass killing in this country. He only cites 3 instances. Kalinga War, then Thagi's killing and Sati's killing, which he says, it is to be measured in tens of thousands, not even in hundreds of thousands in the 1800-year period. So they were soaked in violence. And so they produced thoughts, they produced revolutions, they produced masters, they produced history, which were rooted in violence. So Max Weber theorized all this and said this collectivism is wrong, individualism is great, and individualism is going to shape the world. And that is how the modern West, on the principle of methodological individualism, on which the entire economic, social, and political theories and functioning institutions of the West are based. That was Max Weber. Nothing wrong about Max Weber theorizing subject and the people and the country and the history he had studied. But in 1927, after 25 years, he wrote a book, The Religion of Hinduism and Buddhism, in which he wrote, there are 2 societies which will never grow, and that is the Chinese society and the Indian society, because they believed in karma and rebirth, which destroy individualism, which will never allow an individual to which will never allow an individual to be taking initiative for any purpose, particularly for material purposes, and these philosophies have made people live out of this world in another world. The man never came to India. He never met any Indian master. He perhaps read some Indian literature. You know, researchers have proved that these two great men exercise the greatest influence on Indian intellectualism, academic, everything that is associated with the functioning Indian model today, including the government, the training of the government officials, your entire education system, these universities, sociology department. These are the people who had nothing to do with India, who never knew India. It is they who theorized for India. And we are operating in that paradigm. The entire questions that you are putting to me for discussion is based on this paradigm. I am going to take you to another paradigm. In this whole thinking came several people, and the last of them was Dr. Raj Krishna. Dr. Raj Krishna was an advisor to the government of India. He was a socialist economic thinker. And in the year 1978, Raj Krishna was put a question by the media. Dr. Krishna, we are following the same economic policies, socialist policies, which the East European countries are following. Yugoslavia is following. Russia is following. But they are all going faster than us. Why the same policies are not producing the same result as they are producing there, here? Raj Krishna said, what can we do? We can have only Hindu rate of growth. This is how the word Hindu rate of growth was coined. It is not that some economist gave an off-the-hand answer. Robert McNamara, who was the World Bank president, took this one observation of Professor Raj Krishna and addressed world conferences where he said, this is one society which will always be a burden on the world. I am begging for aid for this society. That was the brand of India in year 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. In 83, something stunning happens, which has not been noticed in this country even today. Paul Bayrock, one of the greatest economic historians of the world, was mandated by the General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, which is the predecessor to the WTO, to write the economic history of the world between 1750 and 1900 for 150 years, largely the colonial period. He came out with a stunning finding that in the year 1750, if you tabulated the order in which you say which are the greatest performing nations in economics and come down, he said China was the country which was leading the world with 34% of world GDP, India with 24.5%, America and England put together 2%. This shook the world. And the Western world was ruling the world. They couldn't accept it and would not. Why would they? How could they concede that in the 16th and 17th century, China and India had better standard of living? As German historians began writing, let us accept it. Yes, we did not have that standard of living which India and China had in the 15th and 16th and 17th centuries. Let us admit it. Historian like Ferdinand Braudel began writing in a very assertive way. How can the Western world, which is dictating the course of event of the entire humanity, accept this fact? They could not. So they instituted a development studies institute under Angus Madison, the OECD countries, which are the richest countries in the world. They said, come on, you write 2,000 years of economic history of the world, and gave this mandate to Angus Madison, gave him all the assistance that was needed. Angus Madison did research for 18 years, from 1983 to 2001, and came out with his magnum opus called World Economic History, a Millennial Perspective, in which he said in the first year of the Common Era, India was leading the world with 35% of world GDP. 10th century, India was leading. 1100, India was leading. 1200, India was leading. 1300, India was leading. 1400, India was leading. 1500, India and China equal. 1600, China overtakes India. 1700, India overtakes China. In 1900, both were overtaken by others. When he set it out, it is regarded, all this is available on the net, nothing is a secret, because OECD has published this report free on the net. And Angus Madison began publishing all this till June 2010 when he passed away, and I was giving my lecture in IIT in December 2010. Of course, that IIT lecture is available on the net. And after I completed my speech, the IIT students, the scholars, the researchers surrounded me and said, we don't know why this institution is there for us not to know anything about India. And so, sir, what should we do? Then they asked me to run a course for them, which I do every year. One semester of course I take on Indian economic, business, financial models, management models. You know, the ignorance of India, Indian intellectuals, the educated people, the doctors, the historians, the economists, is astounding. Today, the problem I find is, there is no textbook available on Indian economics. In fact, when I was a BCom student, there used to be a subject called Modern Economic Development, MED, in Madras University. That is about Europe, Germany, France, England, America. Modern economic development. The Indian economy is Indian economic problems. Presenting India as a problem, as a difficulty, as a burden. This is how the psychology of the Indian